Good afternoon, everyone. I get the death watch, the straight after lunch, just as the food's settling in. So if you start snoring, I'll throw things at you, but hopefully you won't. Quick question, who's got data that is shrinking in their environment? Yeah. Anyone? No, no one. No one's got data shrinking. It's growing out of control. So your corporate data, your information is the most critical asset that you guys have these days. Especially with the move from physical machines into virtualization, now into cloud and hosted environments, what you have left is your information and your people. Without your information and your people, you don't have a business anymore. It's not like you're taking people down in to see your data centers like you used to. There are still some out there, but as the t-shirts on some of the AWS guys say, friends don't let friends build data centers. So it's all about the information, and that's really where Veritas fits into it. We protect and we manage the information. So your applications and your infrastructure move into the cloud, move into hosted environments. Other people then start managing that side of it. But the data is the one thing, your corporate information is the one thing that you don't outsource. You have to keep control of that. And that's where Veritas fits in. So we have a technology alliance with AWS. It's been informally pretty much ever since it started, and then we've had a formal alliance for probably the last 12 months or so. And we're doing a lot of development work specifically to move our products into AWS and then also make them more efficient inside AWS. And you'll see a couple of little boxes in some of the slides that I've got of where we've been provided feedback from AWS as to what else they'd like to see in some of our tools. And we are developing like crazy to do that. And so some of them we've actually got coming out in releases before the end of this year as well. So we have what's called a 360 data management view of the world. We look at your corporate data holistically and help you manage that, help you work out what's needed and what's not, what tiers of storage it should be sitting on. And we also then help you protect that and keep the applications available to then access that data, wherever that data is, whether that be on premises and whether that be in the cloud. And all of these tools that I'll be talking about today can help move your data seamlessly to the cloud and can also help move your applications in an absolutely risk-minimized way to the cloud. So we have a number of solutions in there in our 360 data management portfolio. They really fall into three buckets. The protection, so backup recovery, things like that. Availability, keeping your applications available, keeping the data available. And then the insight, to provide insight into what you have so that you understand it and you don't move things that don't need to into the cloud. Put some science behind what you do so you can work out what you can move and what you shouldn't be moving. I'm not going to be covering off all of these today, but if anything interests you, come see me afterwards, come and see us at the stand afterwards. I spent a lot of time talking to our customers and partners, and they're all saying, help me better understand my data and to store it optimally. I want to know what I've got. I can't make a decision if I don't have the science, if I don't have the details around my data. So I need to be able to make that cost effective. I need to be able to move to the cloud, but I don't necessarily want to move everything. So we work through that. That should have moved forward. There we go. So the better understanding is who, what, where, how, why. Address compliance. More regulations are coming in. Think of GDPR over in Europe. That will have some ramifications over here. We've got the more privacy laws, things like that as well that are coming in. Eliminating the waste. How much crap, for want of a better word, are we storing on our corporate file shares? And how much can I see being moved up into the cloud? A lot. Data, other than people, most important asset, and then store it optimally. Is this a workload that has to perform really, really highly? Is this something that I've just need it there just in case it can wait a day or so for me to get it back? Put the right workloads on the right tier of storage with the right compute models. So the first thing I'll be talking about is understanding that and what we do around that. So data growth continues to cause problems, hence my smart-ass comment at the start of who's got data that's shrinking? No one. People are also wanting to get rid of tape. And a perfect use case for AWS is sending your backup images out to things like S3 and frequent access and Glacier. Perfect use case. And then durability, not enough for CloudWorks. So how do you get that visibility and how can you complement durability with data protection to ensure that your data and your applications are there? So we have a tool called Information Map. Information Map looks at unstructured data in your environment, helps you understand what's there. This interface is hosted in AWS. So we use AWS as well. We can then tell you, say in here, where your data is. So we have in Australia 2 locations that are showing up over here. One's in Sydney, one's in Melbourne. This is actually Veritas from about 9 or 10 months ago. We actually use our own tools. How about that? We've done a lot of cleanup since we did this as well. We can tell you the age of the files in your environment. How many of them are 7 to 10 years? How many of them are more than 10 years? We've got a lot of crap. We can tell you the item types over here. So why have I got 45 terabytes worth of database files sitting on my file shares? Because DBAs will look for any space possible to put their databases. They will put it anywhere. So why would you want to keep all of that moving forward? In here as well, there's images and graphics. There's also another one in there for like movie files, things like that. So what we can do is help you understand that. You can then click on that, drill in, it will then list out all of the JPEGs that might be in your environment, or all of the PDFs, or all of the databases in your environment. What we can also do is help you cost justify where your data is. So in here, for example, stale data, or I've got this set up in this particular report, it was anything that hadn't been modified in more than 3 years and accessed in more than 3 years. We've got 170 terabytes of that in at Veritas. Or we had, it's not there anymore. A lot of that's gone. Fully loaded cost of where it was sitting was costing us $853,000 a year. We went through and did some sums and went, okay, we can delete an awful lot of that. About $500,000 worth of storage we were able to reclaim almost overnight once we had the visibility into that. We could then move some more of that out to things like S3 and frequent access. Save an incredible amount of money. Put that money to better use. We can also scan S3. So any data that you've already got out in S3, we can go and scan. Backup. It's a necessary evil. Not everyone likes doing backups. Not everyone wants to do backups, but you have to have a copy of your data. Perfect use case when you like, who here still or wants to get rid of tape? Few? Yep. Has anyone completely got rid of tape yet? 1? 2? Cool. There are very few who have completely gotten rid of tape. Lots want to. Some are still saying for really long-term retention of stuff that's accessed quite a bit, that's had a high change rate, tape's still quite good. Other people want to get rid of tape. Perfect use case here is net backup. Of course, net backup is the perfect use case. We can use net backup. We can work in with third-party tools. We've also got our own called Veritas Access that can then move the deduplicated data out into S3 and directly into Glacier. So think of how most backup tools work at the moment is that if you want to get your data into Glacier, you first back it up, move the images out to S3, and then you use other policies to move from S3 into Glacier. We've got direct integration via Veritas Access, and very shortly we will have the native integration. So by the end of this year, we'll have native integration into Glacier using the APIs. So that's coming. With that, really great use case for things that you don't need to recover really quickly. Having it out in Glacier, really cost effective for that. If you need to recover quickly, you'd keep a copy on site, and then you'd have another copy for longer term retention out in S3 or something, and then that's faster to bring it back. So wherever you need to keep your data, we can do that. Once you've moved more and more of your applications into the cloud, you may not necessarily want to then be running your backups down on in-premises anymore. So Net Backup can run in cloud. BackupExec can as well. So in AWS, we can run the master server, we can run the media servers, deduplication pools, send it down to other tiers of storage within AWS, move it between availability zones or regions if you really want to as well. So whatever you need to do with your backup images, we can do. So the data portability. So that was the sort of first use case of how you can actually get some of your data and make use of AWS. One of the next one is with the proliferation of unstructured data, you need better ways of storing things. What we've created over the last couple of years is a new solution called Veritas Access. One of the use cases is long-term retention for backup images, so we can write down it's then an OST target for net backup, and we can use that to then send the images out to S3. What it is, software-defined NAS that is scale out and multi-protocol at the front end and at the back end. So for example here, these are the NAS heads. They're Linux boxes. They can be virtual or physical, just running Red Hat Linux. We can access the data via object, via Samba CIFS, via NFS, via iSCSI, via NFS, however you need to access that data, that namespace. Single namespace with then multiple tiers of storage under the covers. So we might have a tier of storage for the higher performing workloads still sitting on your on-premises SAN. And then you go, okay, I'll set the policy, because it's all policy driven, for longer term retention. So something that may not have been accessed for more than 60 days, the policy might be, we'll send that out to S3 in frequent access under the covers. Application or user comes in via the front end, via block or file or object, however they need to access it, can still access that data. Veritas Access, hence the name Access, will then go and recall that back out of S3 or S3 in frequent access. So doing all of that under the covers. You can then migrate your data, use that as a migration gateway tool out into AWS. Completely seamless for the users. Built into it as well is IP-based replication. All of this can run in AWS. So you might have one namespace on premises to do the replication or to do the migration up into cloud. You might have another namespace actually running up in AWS already. You can then DR that using the replication that's built in between availability zones or regions. Being government, you're probably not going to go between regions, but between availability zones would be fine. So there's some capabilities there that you can look at using as well. As I said, if you've got your data that's moved and your data that's protected, but your applications aren't available, you might as well not be protecting your data. Your applications need to be able to access that data as well. Applications, you might say, okay, everything we're doing in the cloud, we're going to do cloud native, we're going to rebuild applications, start from scratch. Anything that's legacy we'll replace over time. There gets to a tipping point where you then go, well, maybe some of these legacy applications I can just pick up and move. With the Veritas Resiliency Platform, we can help you do that, and I'll talk you through that in a sec. So we can migrate multi-tier applications in a really risk-reduced way from on-premises into cloud, and in the release later this year, we'll then be able to go from cloud to cloud or from region to region or availability zone to availability zone. So we can simplify the portability of those applications. We can minimise service outages, whether that be planned or unplanned outages. We can help minimise all of that. And we can help you scale cost effectively. So one of the prime use cases for this particular tool is DR. And why is that? Because we've got non-disruptive recovery rehearsals built in as core of the product, or I prefer to call them fire drills. It's a lot easier to say than non-disruptive recovery rehearsals. With the fire drills, we can take what you need to do. So your multi-tier application, start and stop orders. You replicate the data between on-premises and cloud, between on-premises and AWS. Only our workloads, our management workloads are running at the time up in AWS. All of the other guests are powered off. You've got the storage that's replicated up. We take a copy on write snap and we start a new guest, a new AMI inside an isolated network inside AWS. Test it all out, make sure it all works. When you're happy, you can turn it all off. That can all be scheduled. So having that multi-tier application being tested, you know that when you need to go and push the big red button to say, we need to go, you know it's going to work. Using that same methodology enables you to do a really risk-mitigated migration to cloud. So think about what I just said. You take your multi-tier application, you're replicating it up, you do your fire drills, make sure it all works, you migrate the workload over so it shuts everything down in the right order in your production data center, starts it all up in the right order in the cloud. It all performs exactly how you want it to perform. Fantastic. Turn the software off and you've done your migration. If it doesn't happen to perform the way that you thought it might, because what we do is when we do the migration up into the cloud, we reverse the replication so it comes back down again. You can then stop everything, start them up on premises, pick the next AMI up or 2 AMIs up so you get more compute, more memory, more whatever else you need, and go through that process again. Absolutely risk-minimised way of moving to the cloud. And when I said that that can also help minimise your planned outages as well, think about the complexities of your applications when you go through and say, I need to shut down this whole batch of applications so I can go through and do some maintenance work. Instead of then having to get lots of different people on a conference bridge or in over the weekend or at night to bring everything down in the right order and then do everything and then when it's all done, start it all up again in the right order. You've already got all of those workflows in place. And so you can get in and say, here is my billing application, or here is my powers and wires application, or here is my electoral roll application, or whatever it might be. Single click to shut it down. It shuts it all down in the right order. You do what you need to do. Single click brings it all back up again. Minimises the amount of downtime for your planned outages as well. So with the run, we've got runbooks. So multi-tier application, start and stop recovery orchestration. We can also integrate in with any existing technologies that are there. So you might already have 2 data centers and you're going, well, for my database workloads, I still want to keep them in my own data centers. I'm already replicating them with SRDF or SnapMirror or TrueCopy or whatever it might be. That's great. We'll sit on top and we can orchestrate that. For some of the other workloads like your applications and your web front ends, we can then work with the IP-based replication and replicate them up into AWS, and we can actually then go into 2 different directions. We can have a many-to-one or a one-to-many relationship with our applications or your applications. So wherever you need it to go, we can work with you on that. This also integrates in with Net Backup, so you can have your Net Backup images using Net Backup Air auto image replication to take that from one Net Backup domain to another Net Backup domain. We can then orchestrate the recoveries of that with the resiliency platform. So we have an absolutely unique offering of being able to integrate in with physical and virtual x86 workloads. We can integrate in with any replication technologies that you're already using, any of the major array vendors. We've got our own IP-based replication, and we integrate in with Net Backup. So however you need to be able to recover your applications, however you need to be able to orchestrate your failovers, we can do all of that, and using those tools to also do your migrations. So single-click rehearsals, disaster recovery, migration, and then workload mobility, being able to move those workloads up into the cloud, up into AWS. Sound interesting? Please come and talk to us. Sorry, I'll go back one. Go back. There it is. This is one of the tools where AWS, a couple of the architects from AWS up in the US have come back and said, fantastic piece of technology. What we'd like, rather than having a generic one that is the same for AWS, on-premises, other public clouds, etc. We've got some unique technology. We'd like you to actually work in with some of our unique technology, and so our December release will be releasing some of those features that will then be again another unique offering between us and AWS. Some of your other workloads that you might have on premises. So picture a big Oracle database running on multiple Linux servers, and you go, yeah, okay, this is one of our last applications that we have here. Do we keep it on premises? Do we DR it to another one of our own premises? How do we handle that? What do we do? What we can do with our InfoScale technology, for those of you who've been around for a while, that was Storage Foundation and Veritas Cluster Server, repackaged into what we call InfoScale. We can work in, again, on-premises physical hardware and have that DR'd in a tightly coupled scenario into AWS. Or this can be between two AWS availability zones. What we do is we're monitoring the applications all the time. So something happens to the application, it goes down. As good as AWS is in monitoring and managing all of the infrastructure and that workload, they don't do the application monitoring side of things. They can't automatically restart databases and stuff. That's been our bread and butter for 20-something years, and improving all the time. So we can automate that restart, and depending on the rules, it could be that you have it being replicated up into AWS or between AWS availability zones, and so we can then automate the failover of that application and call the other tiers of the application to say, hey, database has gone from one site to the other, you guys shut down, come over, come up again in the right order as well. This again can be used to help migrate your workloads up into AWS. In here we work in with Docker containers, so if you wanted to use containerization up in the cloud, that's all fine. We can have shared nothing scale-out cluster file systems, or scale-out clusters with shared nothing. That's absolutely perfect use case for high-performant workloads that you may want to be using the EBS flash volumes for. We can have them dedicated to each particular guest. We can then share and make resilient all of that data workload and all of that file system workload, do all of the file locking between the heartbeat interconnects so that we can do shared nothing scale-out file systems. Absolutely unique offering, again, up in AWS. So whatever applications that you have on x86 workloads on premises, we can help you pick them up, lift and shift, again, in a risk-minimised way, up into AWS. Absolutely unique offerings. So, in my last couple of minutes, I actually got through in time. We've been in the industry. We went hiding for about 10 years when we got bought by Symantec, but we've been sold off again. We've been in this industry of protecting people's data and protecting their applications and helping them to stay up and running for over 25 years. So we've got that enterprise-grade heritage. We've been through the transitions from physical boxes to client server to virtualization, now into cloud. And our solutions are still as relevant now, if not more so, than they have been in the past. Because in the past, you were managing all your own infrastructure, you could put all your own other bits and pieces in place. Now AWS is doing that, which is fantastic, but you don't have that same level of control over your data and your applications. So we're trusted by pretty much all of the world's leading corporations and government departments. We've proven again and again to solve the pain points that are out there around that data management, around that migration of workloads from on-premises into AWS, to seamlessly be able to move your underlying unstructured data to different tiers of storage through into AWS. That's been a pain point people have had. We've solved that. And we are absolutely focused on your corporate information, on your government information, to ensure that that is available where you need it, when you need it, and performing how you need it. We can give you the insights into your unstructured data, and we're adding more data sources in as well, so that you will also get the ability to look into your databases and see if you've got table spaces that aren't being used and things like that. Another thing DBAs have a really good habit of doing, of creating and filling up, pre-loading all of these table spaces and then never coming back and using them. Not having a full go at the DBAs, but I do see a lot of wasted space there. And over time, we've developed that IP to address everything around your information. So please, review the criticality of your applications. It's not a one-size-fits-all. Not every workload needs to have full tightly coupled clustering. I would say pretty much every workload needs to have a backup of some way, shape or form. But have a look. Is it a bad reputation, or will it cost your department money if things are down? If they are, we can help. Our solutions can help you risk minimally move your applications up into AWS. We can help you move your data into AWS, as you've seen through Veritas Access. Achieve that predictable resiliency. Test it over and over and over again so that you can be sure when you push that button to say, I need to do a DR, it'll work. And using that same functionality to move your applications up into AWS. And if you've got high performance workloads, we can really help you with that as well. IP-based replication, so we can replicate from your own data centers up into AWS. We can go between the AWS availability zones. So whatever you need around that space, we can help you out. So please come and talk to myself and anyone else in the team. Talk to Nigel, he likes talking to people. So thank you for your time. That's all I was covering today. We do have a coffee machine. I know that some people go, oh, we can't accept it, whatever. Take it for your lunchrooms. Put it in your lunchrooms at work or whatever if you win it. But if you really can't, please tell me. But red ticket, they're all red, 052. Hey, we have a winner. So thank you very much. Please come and talk to us.